So technically, I may or may not be dyslexic, but with numbers, I technically have learned 1,500 and I don't know, 34 or something, maybe 44, I don't know. But basically numbers kind of get jumbled in my head and it gets hard to remember what number I like stopped at exactly. But it was definitely, I learned like at least over 1,500 hanzi. And I wanted to share with you guys like how I did that. So I think it's pretty popular. I don't know how popular it is now. Maybe it's not as popular as it once was. But I used remembering the hanzi with like I think his name's James Hasig. I had spent like a really long time. Like I've been learning Chinese for like 3 years or 2 years or something. It wasn't really like a proper start and stop date like with some of the other languages. Oh my gosh, here's shade. So it wasn't really like a this is the day I am going to start doing Chinese and I'm not going to stop until I finish. Like it's been very intermittent. So you could say like 2 or 3 years. And I've tried several different ways to learn Chinese, like writing it down 100 times, and it didn't really work that like I would always end up forgetting them. So it was like, why am I even doing this? But yeah, just a little more like backstory just to kind of understand like where I'm coming from. Like I spent 2-3 years doing this and I'm trying to learn Chinese to read and write. Like that's, I just made like a whole video on why I'm not learning Chinese tones. I will link it there or maybe there or something, I don't know. But like I just made that video and I'm not learning tones. So like my whole goal is to be able to read and write Chinese. And yeah, I don't need tones to do that basically. Yeah, I barely know what year it is most of the time, so that's why like I always say like it's been like maybe 2 or 3 years of me learning Chinese. So basically how Heisig's method or like the remembering the hanzi method goes, Heisig will give you the hanzi and he's gonna give you like a specific keyword to associate with the hanzi. Like for example, take this word, this hanzi, it means the keyword he gave us is scattered. So what he does is like as the book kind of progresses, he'll give you like components based off the radical, but sometimes it may or may not be based off the radical. Like it may or may not be based off the like actual true meaning of the radical. Like for example, this part means salad, and that's not like a real meaning for that. So yeah, but he'll break it down into separate parts. So it'll be like salad, flesh, and taskmaster. And you're supposed to create like a really visual mnemonic in order to remember that specific hanzi. And like this worked like super well for me because I'm a super visual learner. And so basically like my story for scattered was like I used to work at Arby's like a whole lifetime ago. I used to work at Arby's, and he recommends you try to pull from like your memories and like make it as visually stunning as possible. So yeah, I used to work at Arby's, so I tried to think about my old manager, and I would think, because I would say like, oh, there's flesh in the Arby's salad, my taskmaster is extremely mad at me. And that was kind of like my visual story, like that I kind of had for myself, and that's how I remember that this word means scattered. So like as you could see, like for me, like really seeing that image in front of me, that helps me immensely. Like that helps me, I will never forget this hanzi, like ever. I should note that like in the beginning of the book, he kind of gives you the stories and he helps you like kind of cheat in that sense. Like he'll like he'll kind of give you the story to help you with the method, and then eventually he'll drop the story and start to make you to develop your own stories. Which, when he started dropping it, I was like kind of annoyed, because it did take me a long time to kind of figure out how to figure out the story. Like, not all of them are that easy. Sometimes he'll still help you out with the story, but not all of them are super easy to make up on your, I mean, not for me, but I got through it. Obviously, I made it through all of book 1. I would just like kind of reinforce it by using like the Pleco flashcards. Like use a SRS tool of your choice. Like, a lot of people use Anki, but like I don't. I have an iPhone, right? So like I have an iPhone, right? So to get like the Anki app on my phone would cost like $20. So I just stick to Pleco. And I think you have to pay for this specific add-on, or maybe not, like the flashcard add-on, if I'm not mistaken. But it must have been really cheap, because I kind of don't remember how much that costs. But anyway, Pleco's awesome if you don't already know, but Pleco's awesome for Chinese. By the way, our stuff got stolen at the beach here yesterday. It really pissed me off, because all there was in it was like an old towel that's stained with period blood on it, and my husband's like one shirt that he has. So it's like, why did you even steal that anyway? But yeah, like basically, like as I mentioned, like this was like super effective for me, because I'm such a visual learner. Like, it's kind of hard for me to explain it in words a lot of the time, like the visual images I get when I make these stories. There's a dog over there. I'm scared of dogs. Where is he? I don't know. He must be chill if I can't even see him anymore. Some weird shit happening up there. But yeah, like it was super effective. Like, I finally was able to forever remember how to write these thousands of hanzi. And by the way, I made a GitHub. Like, it's free. Like, it's GitHub. You can see the code for yourself and everything. Maybe you can help make it better, because there's some other things I would love to update to it. But I made this program that basically, like, for a given keyword or hanzi, it will pull up the components, because sometimes I would have trouble like remembering like what that one component means salad, you know. So yeah, I made this little program for myself, and if you think that might be useful to you, you can also attach like your story that you came up with. Like, you can like type in like a note to yourself and type in like what story you had come up with. But yeah, you can attach like what story you had come up with, and if that's useful to you, I'm just gonna leave that down in the link below. But it's completely free, obviously. Why would I do that? By the way, I was able to finish. I don't even know if you can hear it. I was able to finish 1,500, like all of book 1 in about 3-4 months, something like that. Just to give you a reference. So let's talk about why I ended up quitting, because I had full intention of learning all 3,000 hanzi. So let's talk about why I quit. So first of all, book 2 is structured a little bit differently. You basically, what he does is, it's kind of hard to explain, but what he does is he goes by a chapter. Like, each chapter he'll like taking the hanzi that you learned, then he combines them into other like hanzi that are made up of that hanzi. So like I'll kind of like here's an example. So take this character Yin or Ying, that means baby, and it's made up of bei and nu. I don't know how to pronounce hanzi. Like I said, I don't really care, but yeah. In the first book you learn in chapter like 4 or something, and you learn bei in chapter 6, or maybe vice versa. It doesn't really matter. But basically this hanzi is in chapter 6 of book 2, and he just combines like all the hanzi that you've learned in maybe like the first chapter of the first book combined with the 6th chapter of the first book to give you like a new word, like a new hanzi. So you're basically building off of what you already know. So like you kind of learn nearly every single component pretty much. And I don't know if the whole book is like this because I did quit like pretty soon, but the reason I quit is that if I already learned like all the components, like I don't need him anymore. Like I don't need him anymore, right? So I can like start learning hanzi that I like, or that are important and relevant to me. So for example, like I just learned this one hanzi pronounced Ming, and it's separated between like, so it has like the crown component, it has the sun component, and it has like the number 6 in there. So I'm not gonna wait for him to like for me to finally be able to unlock that hanzi in the second book. I just was like, oh, like I know all these components from the first book that I've learned, and basically like my story, I can make a story myself. And the story I have for that, if you're curious, is something like the sun put on a crown, which made the world go into a deep darkness, into a hellish darkness, and now people are going crazy writing 666 everywhere. And now I'm able to remember this word Ming, which means like dark, underworld, deep, something like that. And I needed, it's more relevant to me. And if you know anything about like how I believe you should learn language, I think you should learn words that are the most relevant to you first, so you can talk about yourself and your life and what you do in like a more fluid way first, before you start learning things that aren't relevant to you. Like I hate learning school words. I hate learning school words because I am not in school, and I haven't been in school for years. So, you know, like those words aren't necessarily like useful to me, like, you know what I mean? So, but I need the word Mingshang or whatever. Like I said, I don't know how to pronounce it. Like I'm learning, but like, you know, that means meditation, and that's like something like I practice a lot. It's relevant for me. So like, a lot of people who don't like remembering the hanzi, like Kasig's method or whatever, they're upset about it because like he doesn't actually teach you like the pinyin. And so first of all, let's just talk about like, do I still recommend it? Like, do I recommend that you use his method and all of that? Like, yeah, I do recommend it. It's just you need to have the brain that like aligns with that, and if you don't align with that, like that's totally fine. Like that's cool. Like you just need to find like what works for you, what method works for you, because the reason that there's not a single language learning strategy that works for everybody is because everybody's brain experiences and everything like that is completely different. So for me, this is what works as a visual person who often has a hard time transcribing into human words what I'm seeing in my mind. This is an awesome method, and if you're like that, this will be super useful to you. Also, I also mentioned that like I use the Pleco flashcards. That's kind of how I kind of picked up like the pinyin for a lot of these things, because I still need to know the pinyin in order to like text somebody, and I don't know, I want to be able to text and read and everything. I don't know, I need to know the pinyin. But it didn't really matter, because he argues that learning one aspect, like basically Chinese kids, they are able to learn the audio part, so they're able to start there as their base and like learn writing on top of that, and like that's how they can start. But we don't have that advantage of having an ear for what Chinese sounds like and looks like already. So he argues that you should break it up, and like maybe you just learn how to write it or whatever. And as I mentioned, like if you're not learning to write it, like if you're not learning to write the hanzi, then this isn't gonna, I don't see how this is super useful to you, but I am. So maybe it would still be useful because it does, you can still memorize it. It will still help you be able to recognize a specific hanzi, which is cool. So maybe it does still work anyway, but basically that is the downside of there's no pinyin, but basically it can be made up for in other ways, so I don't really see what the big deal is. And yeah, if you're visual, whatever, I say this is for you. I say try it out. It really didn't take me that long to get there. Like I said, it like took me like 3-4 months. And like I mentioned, again, like in the description, you can check out my program, like my little terminal program that I made in my GitHub, that you can put your own stories and look up a hanzi and see the components and how they're made up. Like if you're following along with Heisig's method, that like might be useful to you, and like it's free or whatever. And yeah, I don't know, I hope this was useful for somebody. Have a good day. Bye.